I was in tears over my husband when his brother unexpectedly walked in. You won't believe what happened next. I never imagined that this could occur in my life. Avoid making the same errors I did. The rain tapped against the windows, a rhythmic metronome to my thoughts, steady, persistent, and impossible to overlook. I perched on the edge of the couch, my knees pulled close, one hand clutching a damp tissue while the other held a mug of tea that remained untouched. It had turned cold some time ago. All sensations were frigid, devoid of warmth. My chest throbbed with a dull, relentless pain, a manifestation of disappointment so profound it felt as though it was decaying something within me. Laura is my name. I am 52 years of age and have been happily married for almost 30 years. Or, I suppose I ought to say that I was married. I find myself at a loss for clarity. The distinction, that sense of assurance, has grown increasingly indistinct in recent times. My husband, Mark, and I had evolved into strangers, the type that glide past one another in the hallway, enveloped in a courteous silence, feigning ignorance of the widening chasm between us. I once believed it was merely a phase, a common experience for couples. However, his late nights and the excuses he brought home, which lacked any semblance of sincerity, indicated a deeper issue. It was more than mere suspicion. It was the understanding. I sensed a shift had occurred, and I felt rather silly for acting as if I were oblivious to it. That evening, I had ultimately succumbed. Following dinner, if one could even refer to that quiet, reheated concoction as dinner, he departed once more. Stated it was work. I refrained from asking questions. Once the door closed behind him, I released everything I had been holding in. The sobs emanated from a profound depth. I failed to identify my own voice. I felt as though I was grieving for something I had not yet lost, yet deep within my heart, I knew I already had. It wasn't until the front door creaked open that I became aware of the noise I was making. Laura? The voice surprised me unexpectedly. I swiftly wiped my face and glanced up just as David entered the room, his hand lingering on the doorknob, his brows furrowed in concern. The younger brother of Mark, he was not scheduled to arrive in town until the following weekend. That is, if my recollection serves me correctly, what Mark mentioned. There he stood in the doorway, dampened by the rain, his eyes scanning me as if he were attempting to discern what had been broken. I experienced a moment of panic and made an effort to compose myself. David, I must admit, I was unaware of your arrival. He entered with caution, as if the room were delicate and could easily shatter. I was scheduled to be here tomorrow. The journey progressed more swiftly than I had anticipated. I utilized my key as I preferred not to disturb anyone. I did not consider. He paused, directing his gaze towards me. Are you feeling all right? That question, those 3 words, they shattered something within me once more. I shook my head and let out a laugh, though it came out sounding more like a cough. I am not okay. He advanced a few steps, then halted. Would you like me to depart? His modest offer, along with his readiness to withdraw, instilled a sense of safety in me. I gently shook my head. Please don't go. Stay with me. I prefer not to be by myself at this moment. David nodded and approached the armchair opposite me, settling into it gradually, as if he were still contemplating what was deemed suitable. He refrained from seeking additional information. He refrained from overwhelming me with sympathy or counsel. He remained seated, his presence both steadfast and serene. The quietude shared between us was not unsettling. It was a respite from the clamor within my mind. Eventually, I spoke once more. He is currently involved with someone. I may lack evidence, yet I am certain. I sense it. David maintained an air of composure. That ought to have hurt, yet it did not. In a sense, it provided me with a feeling of greater clarity. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, and regarded me with a genuine concern that felt authentic. It seemed authentic. I apologize, Laura. I always held on to the hope that he would finally get his act together. I stared at him in surprise. You were aware of his nature. David paused, contemplating his next move. Let's just say I have encountered a variety of experiences. I was unaware of the extent of the situation, and it is not my role to intervene in a marriage. However, I have always disapproved of the manner in which he began to treat you in recent years. The tears flowed once more, unstoppable. However, on this occasion, I chose not to look away. I allowed them to drop, permitting him to witness. It was liberating in a way. I provided him with everything, David. I constructed my existence around him, and now it seems as though I am invisible to him. David rose to his feet and approached me, lowering himself beside the couch. He refrained from physical contact, merely gazing into my face with kind, gentle eyes. Your existence is undeniable. Laura, you are not invisible. Welcome. Your presence is significant. It was an incredibly straightforward statement to make. In that moment, it held immense significance. We remained in that position for some time. My breath became steady, my shoulders relaxed. He reached up and took the cold mug from my hands, placing it on the coffee table, and then handed me a fresh tissue from the box beside me. Thank you, I murmured. He offered me a gentle, inviting smile. At any moment, suddenly, an unusual occurrence took place. I extended my hand and gently rested it over his, not driven by desperation, confusion, or impulse. It was a quieter sensation, a quest for something, a desire to feel a steady foundation amidst all the uncertainty. He remained close. His hand moved deliberately, encircling mine with a gentle grip. His skin exuded warmth, providing a sense of grounding. The atmosphere surrounding us changed, albeit slightly. I sensed it, even if I couldn't articulate it. I gazed at him, truly gazed. His face was near, his eyes soft yet penetrating. He bore a striking resemblance to Mark, and yet, in many ways, he was entirely different. Within him resided a gentleness, a tenderness that Mark had not revealed to me in many years. I expressed my uncertainty in a soft voice. He offered a slight shake of his head. That is acceptable. There's no need to have all the answers at this moment. I wished to embrace that notion. I wished to trust that it was acceptable to remain still, to grasp a hand that seemed unwavering even when challenges arose. The distant storm rumbled, with soft thunder reverberating across the hills. Within the space, the sole sound was the gentle rhythm of our breathing, measured and soft. The heaviness of the evening remained, yet it had transformed. I found myself no longer solitary in this experience. That night didn't transform everything, but it did reveal a crack, a sliver of warmth in a space that had become cold for far too long. For the first time in quite some time, I found myself untroubled by the sound of the door opening. I faced tomorrow with a sense of calm anticipation. I hardly slept that night. Once David departed from the living room, I remained seated, gazing at the rain-drenched window, attempting to comprehend the change I had sensed. My heart was ensnared. Not with love, not with guilt, at least not yet, but with confusion, with longing, and with the peculiar solace his presence had provided me. He had not engaged in any inappropriate behavior. I had not either. The manner in which his hand grasped mine, the intensity of his gaze, lingered in my memory. Upon rising from the couch and ascending the stairs, I discovered that Mark's side of the bed remained undisturbed. No communication, no message, absolutely nothing. That provided me with all the information I required. By morning, the sky was clear, yet I remained unchanged. I appeared disheveled, with puffy eyes, tangled hair, and shoulders burdened by the weight of restless thoughts. I stood before the bathroom mirror for what seemed like an eternity, attempting to identify the woman reflected back at me. She appeared weary and worn, resembling someone who had prioritized the needs of others for so long that she lost sight of her own identity. I descended the stairs, anticipating quietude. Instead, I was met with the gentle clinking of dishes in the kitchen. David. He stood at the counter, barefoot, clad in a navy t-shirt and jeans. His hair remained moist from the shower. A pan rested on the stove, filling the air with the enticing aroma of eggs and toast. Upon hearing my presence, he turned and offered a smile. "Prepare your appetite. I thought you might appreciate something warm this morning." The gesture was remarkably simple, yet it caused a tightening in my throat. "You didn't have to do that," I said softly as I entered the kitchen. "I wished to." I took my seat at the table, observing his movements, relaxed and unhurried. It became apparent to me how distinct he was from Mark in that regard. The atmosphere around him was devoid of tension and free from any hint of frustration. He introduced tranquility. I had not fully comprehended the extent of my longing for it. He set a plate before me and took a seat across the table with his own. "I thought you might appreciate some company," he remarked. I acknowledged with a nod, prodding the eggs delicately with my fork. "Thank you very much." We dined in silence for a time, yet it was not an uncomfortable experience. It was simple. At last, I inquired, "How long will you be in town?" He raised his gaze to meet mine. "A couple of weeks." I took a brief hiatus. I simply required a moment of respite. I arched an eyebrow. "From what source?" He let out a soft chuckle. "Life, primarily. Labor amidst the clamor of urban life. I have been contemplating a return to this area." "Is that so?" He gave a nod. "Indeed, there is a certain authenticity in the stillness that resonates more profoundly these days." I wasn't entirely certain of his meaning, yet I sensed it as well. Following breakfast, I gathered the plates, yet he trailed behind me into the kitchen with his own. As I began rinsing them, he softly pushed me aside. "You take a seat. I will take care of this." I began to voice my objections, yet the manner in which he expressed himself, gentle yet resolute, caused me to pause. I took a seat and observed. Later that day, Mark sent a text at last. "A day filled with activity. I may arrive later than expected this evening. Please do not stay awake for me." That was the conclusion. "I'm doing well, thank you. How about you? I apologize, but I did not return home." There is no indication that David was present in the house, merely another justification, shrouded in quietude. I chose not to respond. I stepped out into the backyard, my bare feet sinking into the cool, damp grass, while the sun enveloped me in its warm embrace. David was already outside, seated on one of the weathered wooden chairs beneath the maple tree. He raised his gaze as I neared and motioned toward the chair next to him. "Are you all right?" he inquired. I took a seat. "I am uncertain. There is no requirement for you to be." We sat in silence for a moment, absorbing the sounds of the birds and the gentle rustle of the wind through the trees. Then I expressed something I had never vocalized to anyone before. I am uncertain about my feelings for him now. David remained unfazed. He regarded me with a calm comprehension that steadied my voice, despite the tremor in my heart. I believe I have been clinging to the notion of him, the concept of what we were meant to become. However, the reality is that I feel more authentic when he is absent. He inclined his head gradually. That is logical. I confessed my fear. What do you mean? What follows next? Regarding the concept of beginning anew, regarding solitude. He reclined, his eyes fixed on the branches overhead. Solitude does not necessarily equate to loneliness. I cast a brief look in his direction. Have you ever entered into the bonds of matrimony? No, he said, turning back to me. Almost achieved it once. Her aspirations diverged from mine. It was painful, yet it provided me with invaluable lessons. What do you mean? He offered a subtle smile, understanding the signs that indicate someone is already halfway gone. That impacted me more profoundly than I anticipated. Do you believe he is entirely lost to us? I inquired. David hesitated before responding. Upon doing so, his voice carried a gentle quality. It seems he departed some time ago. He maintained the illumination, anticipating that he would navigate his way home once more. Tears welled up once more. However, I did not shed a tear. This time, no. Without a moment's hesitation, I extended my hand and made contact with his arm. He gazed in my direction, not in the manner of a brother-in-law, not as someone who was meant to remain in the shadows. He gazed at me as if I were a woman he truly recognized. You deserve to feel alive again, Laura, he said, not merely accepted. His words ignited a spark within me, a profound and concealed matter, a sensation I had not experienced in years. We remained in that moment for what seemed like an eternity, simply existing. There are no expectations. Take your time. However, the unexpressed sentiment between us was intensifying, silently and with unwavering patience, akin to a seed anticipating the arrival of spring. On that particular night, Mark failed to return home once more. However, I did not experience a sense of solitude. I settled into bed, drew the sheets around me, and shut my eyes, the resonance of David's voice lingering in my heart. It's time for you to experience vitality once more. For the first time in quite a while, I found myself believing it could indeed be true. The subsequent days unfolded in a haze. Mark did not return home. He occasionally sent a text, concise, uninspired updates that seemed more like duties than genuine communication. I ceased to inquire further. I didn't even feign interest. In the space between my tears and David's silent support, a transformation had taken place within me. The previous iteration of my being, the woman who patiently awaited, who extended forgiveness prior to any apologies being offered, who contorted herself into increasingly smaller forms, all to preserve the integrity of her marriage, she was diminishing. In her stead, another figure was starting to take shape. David resided in the guest room. Every morning, he prepared breakfast. He took the initiative to repair the leaky faucet in the kitchen on his own accord. He maintained a presence without intruding, always within reach. Our days unfolded with a rhythm that felt remarkably organic, as if we had experienced this in a previous existence. One afternoon, as I was folding laundry in the living room, he entered, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. "You seemed like you could use this," he remarked, offering it to me. I offered a smile. "You are going to indulge me." He lifted an eyebrow, clearly entertained. "Perhaps you are worthy of indulgence." I cast a sidelong glance at him from behind the edge of my cup. It's a risky statement to make to a woman who hasn't received such words in a long time. His smile became gentler. Perhaps it would have been wise for someone to have spoken up much earlier. I averted my eyes, though it wasn't due to a reluctance to engage with his gaze. It was due to the fact that a part of me truly did. A tension was quietly and cautiously building between us. Not the type that induced feelings of anxiety or guilt. It was more nuanced, akin to a melody lingering just beneath the surface, poised for discovery. That evening, we strolled through the neighborhood as the sun dipped below the horizon. The sky was painted in hues of orange and delicate lavender, with a gentle breeze caressing our skin. Our conversation was limited. It was one of those moments when silence embodied a unique sense of intimacy. As we rounded the final corner back to the house, I remarked, "I can't help but reflect on how I found myself in this place. Where did I go wrong?" David came to a halt. "You made the right choice. You cherished someone who ceased to be present in your life. It is not your responsibility." I let out a sigh. I can't shake the feeling that I overlooked numerous signs. I was entirely dedicated to maintaining order. I was unaware of how much time had passed since it was last functional. You were engaging in the actions typical of those who genuinely care. You wished for improvement. As we arrived at the front steps, a moment of hesitation washed over me. I was reluctant to return indoors just yet. The atmosphere was invigorating, brimming with vitality. David settled onto the porch swing and gestured invitingly to the space beside him. I settled beside him, folding my legs beneath me. "Do you recall that summer spent at the lake house?" I inquired abruptly. "We are, Mark, each and every one of us. It must have been a decade and a half ago." He offered a smile. "Certainly. You prepared that lemon pie that failed to set properly." I chuckled. It was a bowl of soup. However, he playfully remarked about the delightful soup. "I recall you donning that wide-brimmed hat and raising your voice at Mark for bringing sand into the cabin." "Some things remain constant," I remarked, my voice now softer. "He viewed you in a different light during that time." I directed my gaze towards him. "Could you clarify what you mean?" David paused, then remarked, "He gazed at you as if he understood he was unworthy of you." That brought me to a halt. I found myself at a loss for words. I hoped to avoid tears once more, yet the familiar ache in my chest resurfaced, gentler this time, reminiscent of an old companion. I confessed that I longed to feel like I was someone deserving of worth. "You are indeed." The words arrived with such simplicity and conviction that they were impossible to overlook. Our gazes locked. In that instant, I sensed the earth beneath me shift once more. His gaze remained fixed. It grasped mine, unwavering and probing. "Laura," he inquired, his voice barely above a whisper, "may I pose a question to you?" Indeed. Had circumstances been altered and Mark not involved, do you believe we would have discovered one another? The question struck me with an unexpected intensity, as I found myself pondering the same thoughts in more subtle ways, through silent glances and lingering what-ifs. "I'm not certain," I admitted honestly. "Yet at times I ponder, perhaps we already are." The silence that enveloped us grew deeper, not awkward or contrived, but delicate, authentic. He extended his hand and delicately tucked a stray strand of hair behind my ear. His hand paused briefly, radiating warmth against my cheek. I did not withdraw. He expressed, "I don't wish to overstep any boundaries you're not prepared for. I want to ensure you are aware of that." "I haven't," I whispered. We remained seated for an extended period following that moment. The sky became shrouded in darkness. One by one, the stars emerged, quietly blinking into sight. As we finally rose, uncertainty loomed over what the next day would hold. However, I was aware that a shift had occurred in our relationship. It extended beyond the atmosphere. It resided within me. As the night wore on, I found myself in the bathroom, brushing my hair, when I caught a reflection of myself in the mirror. For the first time in years, I encountered someone who appeared vibrant, not due to David, not completely, but because someone had regarded me as if I held significance once more. I found myself beginning to believe it. The following morning unfolded in a manner reminiscent of the previous ones. However, I had transformed into a different woman. I awoke early, prior to the sun fully ascending, and simply rested there in the gentle gray light. The house exuded a serene stillness, yet it remained comfortably warm, not empty. This time, the silence held a certain comfort, something that enveloped me like a cozy robe. I gradually sat up, stretching my limbs and allowing the tranquility to envelop my being. My mind wandered to David. His hand brushed against my cheek, and the way he gazed at me made me feel seen, as if I remained a person of value to behold. As I descended the stairs, I found him in the kitchen, his back to me, skillfully flipping something on the stove. He was once more without shoes, dressed in a simple gray t-shirt and dark jeans. His hair remained moist, as if he had just stepped out of the shower, while the morning light streamed through the window, casting a glow across his shoulders. "It has a delightful aroma," I remarked gently. He turned, his face illuminating with that subtle smile I was starting to identify not merely as kind, but as something intended solely for me. I prepared pancakes. I was thinking it might be nice to relax in the backyard today. The warmth is already present. We took our plates outside, settling beside each other beneath the maple tree, a place where just days prior I had shed tears, unaware of the reasons behind my sorrow. I have indeed done so. I had grieved for something that was already lost, and I had started to release it. David refrained from initiating conversation. He did not do so. He allowed the silence to permeate our surroundings, and it was only when I felt prepared that he began to speak. "Last night, I received a message from Mark," he remarked, casting a glance in my direction. My fork halted in midair. "Indeed." He inquired whether I could remain in a hotel for the duration of my visit, stated that it was not suitable for me to be here alone with you. I allowed the taste of the pancake to linger on my tongue for a moment longer before I swallowed it down. "Have you explained to him the reasons behind his lack of decision-making authority now?" David let out a gentle laugh, though an undercurrent of tension was evident. I did not express any thoughts. I expressed that it didn't seem worthwhile, yet I did convey to him that I would depart if that was your desire. I turned to face him, and if it wasn't what I desired, he locked his gaze with mine. "In that case, I find myself exactly where I ought to be." His voice carried no hesitation, no hint of apology, and I felt a sense of relief swell within me. "I don't want you to leave," I stated. "In the past few days with you, I've experienced a level of clarity that surpasses what I've encountered in the last 5 years. He gave a nod. "I am here to stay." Following breakfast, we collaborated on the cleanup. We navigated the house with a seamless flow, wiping down counters while I dried the plates. For a fleeting moment, our hands brushed against each other as we both reached for the same glass, and I chose to linger there. That afternoon, I took a seat at the table, equipped with a pen and paper, neither a text nor an email. I required this to be an experience I could engage with physically. I composed a letter to Mark. I informed him that I was aware not of every nuance, not of every falsehood, but sufficiently so. It is sufficient to express that I had reached my limit of waiting, that I was entitled to Morkan's silence, Morkan's apologies that were never offered. I informed him that my anger had dissipated. I was simply finished. I made no requests, offered no pleas, and engaged in no disputes. I simply requested that he refrain from returning. I secured it and placed it on the table. I did not send him a message. I chose not to explain, as I ultimately recognized that I had no obligation to do so. As I emerged onto the back porch, I found David seated on the steps, his elbows resting on his knees, gazing thoughtfully at the garden. I approached and took my place beside him. He raised his gaze. "Are you all right?" I acknowledged with a nod. "I shall be." He gestured to the step beside him, and I took a seat. In that fleeting moment, silence enveloped us as we observed the wind dance through the trees. A duo of birds flitted along the fence, singing sweetly. I composed a letter to him. I stated. David directed his gaze towards me. I instructed him to refrain from returning. He refrained from inquiring about the reason. He did not describe me as brave, strong, or anything of that nature. He nodded once, deliberately and with measured pace. He then reached for my hand with great care. This time I took a different approach and didn't simply allow him to hold it. I restrained myself. His fingers wove together with mine, radiating warmth and strength. I nestled against him, gently placing my head on his shoulder. It seemed effortless. It provided a sense of security. A sense of anticipation lingered, as if a new chapter was on the verge of unfolding. As the sun descended and the shadows stretched across the grass, I sensed the tightness in my chest ease just a bit more. I was uncertain about what tomorrow might hold. I was uncertain about our current state and the future we might share. However, I was already aware of this. I was no longer a woman who remained silent. I was a woman who had rediscovered her essence. In an unforeseen moment, in a manner I could never have anticipated, I found myself seen, heard, and embraced by someone who, against all odds, entered that night and chose to stay.